Listo?
All right. It's still saying connect streaming software to go live on my Instagram, but
On IG, you should have it go live right now because we are live with the people.
okay. It's it's not. I don't know what's going on with my Instagram live. We'll just do YouTube. I'm not even worried about it. It's all good.
Nah, if you got your phone handy, you can always jump in on your phone on your computer. That way you can stream them and tell them to go to the YouTube so that they can see your beautiful face. Because we are live and back on the Black Expat Life Abroad with none other than Miss Courtney B. I am so excited for this conversation because we are at another crossroad to introduce you to another destination expert. You guys are always in for a treat when we bring our team of super friends on to the platforms to be able to give you some real life understanding live from the ground. Because a lot of you, and I'm still seeing more and more, you guys are starting to look to leave the United States and haven't even visited where you are looking to go. I do not want you to be the next person in the chat talking about everything that I thought didn't work out the way that I thought, and I actually never went and chose to go and leave. Let me get off my couch and leave and go and take some time and walk around, do a relocation tour, understand what my life is going to be like before I sell everything that I own. So here I am tonight. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. I'm here
Okay.
live on my Facebook. I'm letting people
Okay.
know that we are live on YouTube. You might be able to see RJ with me, guys. But if not, head over to the Black Expat Stories YouTube channel and you should be able to catch us in both of our glories, not just me, because I want you to see RJ too. So bear with us. This is like
Yes.
my first time going live on these platforms, believe it or not. So
Nah, it is
hey
all good.
everybody.
I'm excited for you guys to be here. Thank you, Courtney, for coming on. We want to give everybody an understanding of who you are. Why did I reach out to you to bring you on? Because you are the lady that knows all about Playa del Carmen and what it's like to actually live abroad and really jump into this lifestyle that isn't honestly, it's a transformation. So, without further ado, please, Miss Courtney, introduce yourself to the people that happen to not know who you are and give them an understanding of why you're here.
Thanks so much, RJ. First of all, it's such a pleasure chatting with you as always. Thank you so much for having me. And for those who may not be familiar with me, I'm Courtney Bowden. I am the creator and host of Black Expat Stories, which is a podcast and developing docu-series that captures the beauty in the Black Sit. We sit down and have intimate conversations with Black Americans who have left the United States and have created home, found home all around the world. We talk about the highs and the lows. We do not just do the surface level conversations, and we do not romanticize the journey because it is indeed a journey. And so for the last 4.5 years, I have been able to call Playa del Carmen, Mexico home. I landed here and immediately fell in love. Believe it or not, I was only supposed to be here for 6 months. It was a relocation experiment between my husband and I, and we both ended up loving it. And years later, we are legal residents, and we have just built such a beautiful life here. And so many other Black Americans have done it and are doing the same. And for those of you who know me, I am a Playa del Carmen evangelist. It's not for everybody. It's one of those places where for the most part, you're either going to really like it or it's going to not be for you. But for those that it is for, it is such a portal. It is a place that has such charm. Of course, there's the beaches, you have all of the trappings of paradise, but beneath that is a place that really has transformed my life and transformed the lives of so many other people that I know. And every chance that I get, I love to share the good news about this beautiful place. So, where do we begin? I mean, why are so many Black people moving to Playa del Carmen? I'm sure if you've
Hmm.
been doing your research and on TikTok, on social media, you have probably heard Playa del Carmen. Well, if you don't know where we are, Playa del Carmen is situated equidistant between Cancun and Tulum. So we're about an
Hmm.
hour south of Cancun and an hour north of Tulum. I'm pretty sure you've heard of two of those destinations because
Hmm.
they are some of the most top visited destinations in Mexico. But right in the middle there is Playa del Carmen. It is a charming beach town that is growing like crazy. And beyond the cost of living, which is why a lot of people decide to make the move to Mexico. We don't want to just focus on that, right? Because that changes, that is dynamic. There are so many other beautiful things, amazing things about this place that I can't wait to get into with you, RJ. And
No,
you've
I am.
experienced the magic of Playa too.
Yeah, you guys know me. If you guys don't know me, my name is RJ. I have been living abroad for the last 3 years, full time, primarily in Medellin, Colombia. But as you guys continue to jump in my inbox, jump in my DMs, it is becoming my heart to expand what it is that we are doing. This opportunity to connect people like you, not obviously you, Courtney, but the people that are watching this, giving them the opportunity to say, okay, we can go to one place. I always consider myself as like, that hookup, like the older brother or the younger brother that you always needed that was going to say, hey, I'm willing to reach back with the people that I'm meeting so that you have an opportunity to be connected. So I came out here to Playa del Carmen about a month ago after being in Medellin for so long. And, it has been quite an interesting journey because I realized how important the communities are, how different this life can be, and how much intention you have to be into going into where you're looking to go, having your drawbridge down to meet new people, try new things. So yes, I have definitely been walking myself around Playa while I'm here for a little bit, but I wanted to get an understanding because so many people that are watching this are in this particular moment right now. What made you leave the United States?
Well, I don't know if we have time for that long story, but and I say that because half jokingly, because honestly it was a buildup. It was a
Yeah.
culmination of factors that drove my exit. But long story short, there was an opportunity during the pandemic to make a move. I had been working remotely since 2015, even before it
Mm,
became a big trend. And I had made that adjustment for myself, but my husband at the time was working a hybrid schedule. And so after the pandemic happened, his entire profession went fully remote. And that gave us the
mm,
opportunity to explore this lifestyle. And so, on top of that, I saw how the US was handling the pandemic. I saw the Black Lives Matter uprisings. I saw the senseless murders of Black men and women by police. We just kept counting them, and it became too much to bear. And in addition to my own negative experiences in the States, even in my own neighborhood at the time, I had just had enough.
yeah.
And I also experienced just tremendous loss. One of my very good friends I lost by suicide. And I was just in a moment in my life, a season in my life, where I was reevaluating everything. And one
Mm,
of the big regrets that I had when I was in college was that I did not take the opportunity to study abroad for many reasons that I won't get
mhm,
into right now. But I promised myself that if the opportunity ever presented itself, if the window of opportunity ever opened again, that I would take it. And so, fast forward to 2021, that window of opportunity did open. My husband and I, we made the leap. We were, initially and this is what I'll tell people, because I have some folks that message me all the time that say,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, I have a partner and they're not fully sold on the idea of leaving." And I'm like, "Hey, I was
Yep.
right there with you, because
Mm-hmm.
one of the interesting things about partnership is that sometimes you're not going to be on the same page about everything at the same time." And so when I presented the idea, or the possibility of moving abroad, my husband was like, "Well, why? No, we're good here." But I think
Yep.
fast forward with the culmination of everything that happened between 2020 and 2021, especially the January 6th uprisings, the insurrection, it really made him reevaluate his optimism in the country's ability
Mm-hmm.
to actually progress past, what our parents and what our parents and their predecessors
Mm-hmm.
were able to achieve. And we kind of went in our separate corners. Now, this is at the height of the pandemic, mind you. So we had traveled together extensively while we were dating, while we were engaged in the early years of our marriage. And so we each created a list of places that we could see ourselves moving. But,
Mm-hmm.
Sister Cora, she had other plans. And a lot of
Absolutely.
countries were not open to, their borders were not open to Americans. And so that
Mm-hmm.
shrunk our possibilities, our list. But the one place that remained on both of our lists was Mexico. And so we decided to explore that as an option. We were attracted to just the close proximity. We came from Atlanta. So from Atlanta to here is about a 2.5 hour flight. Oftentimes you can get that without even having a layover.
Yep.
And we wanted to, in this first foray abroad, we wanted to make sure that we stayed relatively close or accessible to home enough so that if we had family emergencies, if we needed to go back, we could do so relatively quickly. And we did a handshake deal. As I mentioned earlier, we said that we were going to try this out for 6 months. We threw our stuff into storage, booked our one-way ticket, and on May 1st, 2021, we made our move. We initially started off in Cancun, and then we heard so many amazing things about Playa and the community here that we eventually made our move. We directed our long-term housing search here, and we have been here ever since. So that is how we got here. And I'm so grateful that we did make the move. I tell people all the time, it's one of the best decisions that I could have made in my entire adult life. And I want to spread the love of this beautiful place with all of you as well. So RJ, did I lose you? We might have lost RJ, y'all. And I'm trying to um technology is just like really not cooperating with me today. I'm gonna message him.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah,
So
no,
RJ,
sorry. The
before
internet
we
here
continue,
killed me.
you said the internet is messing up.
Yeah, no, it was the internet. I just switched devices, so my apologies to you in the audience.
No worries. No worries.
You
Well,
know what
I
I'm saying?
found out that it's not streaming on my YouTube. So I just have to share
Oh.
this link with my folks a little bit later. I don't know what's going
Yeah,
on.
we'll
It's
get it.
just it's just saying that it's still scheduled. So I don't know, but we'll figure it
Interesting.
out.
No, sorry about that. I definitely wanted to get into that because you mentioned a couple of things. You said you had a list. And
Mhm.
I want more people to really wrap their head around this thought process that the intention and being prepared. I'm actually getting nervous for people that I don't know at this point because I'm seeing people saying like I left, never visited. I moved, I paid 9, 10 months of rent up front.
Yeah.
These things are concerning for me because I think the reason why we do this, we have our platforms, is because we want to be able to help people to stop some of these pitfalls that have happened that we're seeing people happen. We want people to have the opportunity for the transformation that you and I have both experienced. And so many people don't realize that We understand. When you are running out of a burning house, you are often going to forget things, but you can't
Hmm.
forget the important things. The important things are knowing where you're going, understanding that yes, it may feel like it's a burning house right now, but you do need to almost have that wusa moment, that moment that you come within yourself and you say, okay, well, what do I want? Because you can say, oh, well, I want to go to Thailand, but you mentioned proximity. You mentioned your first step out of the United States. And I think so many people on their first swim are going into 10-foot water, not realizing that you may need to have a first stop. I could have brought people on from Thailand and Bali, but I talk to people that are making their first move out of the United States. Do you know how difficult it is to give up everything you know to jump into a new culture, a new language, a new pace of life, and expect you to just automatically walk into it and everything's great? I think that is very, it's possible, but the probability of it is not that high. So you said a lot
Yeah.
of things in your explanation of even just starting with Playa and you end up getting stuck. That made so much sense, and I wanted to kind of like hone in on that people can understand that you guys need to like take a little bit off. You just get on the other side of the TSA. That right there, and start somewhere where you can be like, okay, I don't have to learn a new language, be on a 5 to 7 to 10 hour in front or behind time zone, whatever that's going to look like. I'm on a 10-hour one-way flight. There is no nonstop flights back to the United States if something happens. Like so many of us that have left, we're like, I left, but I didn't know if I was going to have to go back home. So I did
Correct.
certain things that kind of like positioned me, and we did this when there was nobody. There wasn't a lot of like people that look like us that we could say, okay, well, we watched these videos and we were on YouTube for a while, you know. And now people are seeing more people, and they're like, well, they did it, and they did it, and they did it. So clearly, I can just go do it and make it easy. And I just want to point that out because the things I saw in the one of the travel groups today, you know, somebody went over with their child to like somewhere in Asia, I think it was Thailand, paid nine,
Mm.
10 months up front. They're living in the middle of nowhere because of that's what they can afford. The school situation is not what they assumed it to be. There's no black people where they live at because where the black people happen to be that are posted on the internet, well, their budget doesn't actually go towards that. And I want people to understand like Playa del Carmen is such a great spot. It doesn't need to be an inn if you don't want it to. But it is a
Yes.
great spot for the first time mover abroad. Or give yourself a break, guys.
Yes, because like you mentioned, RJ, it really is a feat. I think that one of the drawbacks of the conversation that's happening around this movement right now on social media is that so much of the algorithm is pushing the glamorized parts,
Mm-hmm.
the parts where folks are exploring and touring and doing all the fun things. But I mean, just think about moving from one place to another in your own city. That's a headache. That's enough of a headache, right? Like, everybody I talk to typically hates to move because of everything that is entailed with that. But just imagine having to
Mm-hmm.
do that across a border or across an ocean. So it does take more preparation. It's more logistics involved, and I'm all for having your locations, your preferences, but it really is important to understand not only what your wants are, but what your needs are. So I would say, start with being honest about what you might need. If you have children and they need to be educated, that is going to be a major factor in where you decide to move. And here in Playa del Carmen, There are all kinds of international schools. You can do full immersion, or you can, do an English speaking school. You can do homeschooling. There are so many various options. And so I do want to encourage people to, not trying to kill any dreams, because like you said, RJ, this does not have to be your start, your ending point.
Right.
What I also want to share too is that Playa del Carmen is pretty transient, meaning people use this as a launching pad, and they often go to other places like Thailand, like Bali, like Medellin, Cartagena, and other locations. It's a good place to kind of get your feet wet, especially if you are not fluent in the language, because let me tell you something. If you land over in Colombia, parts of Colombia, and RJ can tell
You
you, if
gonna
you
need it, my boy. You gonna need that. Yeah.
you're gonna
Yeah.
need like some, not just base level Spanish, but like for real Spanish. And that goes for
See,
any other
claro.
country, any other non English speaking country that does not have a large English speaking population. So that's another thing that you want to take into consideration, because yeah, you can Duolingo all day long, but learning on an app and learning in real life are two very different monsters. Now, I'm still on my Spanish language learning journey, but I will tell you that being able to pick up and move to a location that allowed me to speak enough English to get around and to find housing and go to the grocery store and all of that stuff. It took a huge weight off of our shoulders, and it allowed us to really settle in. Now, I'm all for learning the language of the place that you're going to. We don't want to move with a colonizer type energy, but again, we got to be real with ourselves. If you do not know another language, or if you do not know the language of the place that you're trying to move to, that's another factor to consider, um and I think to community is another thing. RJ, you mentioned the young lady who moved, what was it, to Thailand, and she was in the middle of nowhere. you know, you have to consider that where you're moving, it's not as easy to call your homies and your family and they can pull up on you real quick. And
Nope.
there will be times where you are going to have to call on your community for whatever reason, right? I think that the United States has really done a good job of conditioning us to be so individualistic, that we're even individualistic in our choices, in our decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we don't consider
Mm-hmm.
the community aspect in our decision making. And I will admit, I'm the first to admit, I didn't necessarily consider that when I first decided to move to Mexico. I just knew that I wanted to get out of the United States. Now, so happened that we were able to join quite a few online expat communities, but community was not in the forefront of my mind as much as it is today. And now that I'm plugged into
Yep.
community and I found my people, it's like, oh man, not only is this place for me, not only have I found my people, but I'm so grateful that to have landed in a place that is warm and welcoming, where people actually do want to help. They're not gatekeeping information
Yep.
from you. They're happy to see you. They speak when they see you out. They introduce themselves to you if they notice that you might be a new face. So all of that really matters for settling in and making a place home. This is what you're going to be calling home for however long. And home is very different
Yep.
than just a quick stint, right? We're not talking about nomading per se. That's not what I do. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about making a place called home, and how you can do that, and what you need to look for in a location that will allow you to do that pretty easily. Now, there's always going to be um time that you need to allow yourself to adapt to any new place. But with all of
Mm-hmm.
these things in mind, you can really get in, and find your footing quite easily when you choose a place that aligns with your wants and your needs realistically, especially if this is your first
That
time
that
abroad.
is the key though. That's why I keep telling them, like, we're gonna give them something that they need, because you guys need to write this down. The thought process to think that your wants and needs that are in your head and you are actually going to take them and manifest them or bring them to reality, it is a losing game, especially considering everything that is on your plate that may be causing you to want to leave the United States. You know, you need to have the intent and the clarity of where am I going? What am I looking for? I don't know how many times I have to tell people that because everybody that comes on says the exact same things. I think anybody that consistently watches the video, it's like no matter what he says, he always brings somebody else on that says the exact same thing because these are the fundamental keys to moving abroad. This
Yeah.
intention, this understanding of what I want. Where is it? Because what you want is written down and you're like, okay, I need these five things. And then you're like, well, Thailand doesn't have any of these five things, but everybody told me it was going to be great for me. Well, you got to be real about it. And that's why I tell people to bring it back to you, bring it back to yourself. Now, we say community, but the people have a hard time with understanding community, but then they don't also understand bringing it back to yourself either, as individualistic as everybody is. When I say, what do you need from a place? Not what you saw on the internet that somebody else has, but what do you need?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I haven't really thought about that. But you've been thinking about yourself this whole time, which is legal. You see what I mean? So it's like a weird scenario where people are individualistic, but not when it actually benefits them to be, and then needing community, but not actually leaning into community when they have the opportunity to do it in the United States. And what we see often is us leaving and then refining that community focus that we always needed that we had. You said that you got
Yeah.
stuck here in Playa del Carmen. Let me ask you, because a lot of people have put this into their chats, and ChatGPT said, "Here's the top 5 places in Playa del Carmen. Why have been one of them?" What was your reason for getting stuck and not going and exploring other places? And you said, "You know what? I found it, and I'm ready to just see what else it has to offer me."
There are a few reasons, but honestly, RJ, the top ones among them are community. I can't say that enough. I really
Okay.
did find my people here. And I didn't realize how much I needed that and how much
Mm.
it how much joy and fulfillment it would give me until I got here. The other reason why I got quote unquote stuck is because I just started we just started uncovering so many amazing things about this place. The natural beauty, this entire region, which is called the Riviera Maya, is ripe for exploration. I mean, we have cenotes, we have coral reefs, we have the beaches, we have the jungle, we have the ruins, the culture.
Mm.
And so that was another reason that just kind of got me stuck here because I feel like honestly in the last 4.5 years I've only scratched the surface of this place, and I just never got bored with it. And I'm the type of person where I tend to get bored easily, but this place just truly captured my heart. And I just found also too uh, a healthier, slower pace of life that fit where I that fits where I am in this season of my life.
Okay.
I knew that I came here out of burnout, entrepreneur burnout. I've been running my business for 7 years,
Mm.
grinding and hustling. I came from Atlanta where, if you don't have two, three, four, five, six side hustles, are you even an entrepreneur? And I was
What do you
exhausted
do
by
for
that.
work?
That's the
Mm.
first question people ask you. And here you can know
Yep.
somebody, you can truly be friends with someone and not have any idea what they do for a living. And I can't tell you how
Okay.
refreshing that is, because people aren't
Yeah.
assessing you by, what you can potentially do for them. Because there's a lot of clout chasers and
Mm.
social climbers that try to assess, like, okay, well,
Oh
what do you
yeah.
do to try to advance their own agenda? Um, and then when you connect with people, I have found the people that I have connected with, I've connected with them based off of my interests or based off of shared interests, based off of shared
Okay.
values. And that is truly how you find your people, you know? Um, so yeah, the slower, healthier pace of life, really getting more active, having access to fresh fruits and veggies and nutritious meals that you don't pay an arm and a leg for. I can walk right up here
Hmm.
to the fruteria, the fruit stand, and buy a whole gang of fresh fruit straight from like the farmer. No middleman, no Whole Foods markup, and I just feel like I am truly living my best, healthiest life. And juxtapose that with my experience in the States, I mean, I couldn't see myself, I can't see myself going back. Playa won't necessarily be my home forever because I do dream of exploring other places. But for now, it is
Okay.
a perfect fit.
So many people think that they're where they choose to go in their expat destination. That's like, well, I get. Have you had been asked this question? So you renounced your citizenship to the United States? Like, I'm sorry, what? I renounced my citizenship to the United States. I'm no longer an American. And it's like people don't understand that. Never mind you when you move abroad, you're not renouncing your citizenship. One,
Right.
two, wherever you choose as the first place. Once again, it's not the end destination. What I have seen is you may go and hop around. What often happens, like I said, I was planning to spend 3 months or 6 months in Colombia, and then I was going to come to Playa. Well, I got
Uh-huh.
stuck in Medellin and was like, "This is what? How you going to out fantastic? Real, seriously." But when so many people are looking at this, they're thinking, "Oh, I have to go and buy a house." So many Americans are thinking, "I need to go buy a property. I need to even go get a visa tomorrow." Not understanding how their passport works. And I want you guys to understand, you guys are in a bad relationship. I'm going to tell you, you guys are in a bad relationship. I'm your friend. I want to tell y'all in a bad relationship. Y'all in a bad relationship with America. And for when you get out of this bad relationship, I don't need you entertaining a bunch of suitors. I need you to like date around in the scenario of I'm not looking to go get married again. I'm not looking to go put all of this money into a place and all. Like give yourself some breathing room. You mentioned, and I've traveled around and I'm like, I think Colombia would be a good base for me to build a home at. However, like you, I still want to go see so much of the world. I still want to go maybe spend 3 months or 6 months somewhere else and still have that flexibility. And so many people that are in America, because the education system is not teaching us or having these conversations, Court, they're putting us in a scenario where we think once we leave America, now we have to take all of our stuff and we need to go get in bed with another country, and not understanding that you got some flexibility at first as you kind of get out of that bad relationship and try to start remembering who you were before you got into it. And you really don't have an option because it's like you don't. I left at 35. I had spent 35 hard years from the time I opened my eyes to the time I left America full time in the United States. So I didn't even know who I was outside of the United States. And
Yeah.
that opportunity is on horizon for so many people. And we see it now. You know what I mean? Like, y'all don't realize we were talking about this yesterday. People talking about what they're going to give up by leaving. And one thing that most people don't realize is you're not giving up anything. I have everything I ever had in the United States, but I have so much more than I ever thought that I would ever have access to by leaving the United States. Do you run into that scenario of that feeling where you're like you actually got gained more by leaving than having this scenario where you're actually set back?
Oh, 100%. 100%. For all of the reasons that you mentioned and that I mentioned earlier, you know, um I think that now we're starting to have more conversations around how important our environment truly is. It is very difficult to heal and
Hmm.
thrive in a place that broke you, in a place that consistently wounds you, in a place that constantly traumatizes you. And once I was able to extract myself out of that environment, like you said, RJ, so brilliantly, I began to learn who I was again, and what I truly wanted. authentically, not
Hmm.
what someone else told me I should strive for, right? Not what someone else told me I should try to acquire materially, but what did I really want? And
Hmm.
after landing here, the beauty of kind of going on this journey, either solo or with a partner, with your family, is that there is this sort of bubble that gets created when you first move because you don't know anyone. And so you lean on either yourself or your people. And it is a fantastic opportunity
Hmm.
to reassess all the things, right? All the things that inspired you to move in the first place, all the things that inspired you to exit the United States, and truly,
Yep.
reprioritize your life. And it is often very difficult to, you know, make other decisions if you don't know who you are. And so that's why I say that Playa del Carmen is such a great launching pad because it gives people that space, that time, to heal truly, right? Whether you're in burnout, whether it
Yeah.
is a chronic illness. I know people who have moved here with chronic illnesses, and
Hmm.
because they are moving more, they're getting more sunshine, they are poisoning themselves less with food. They have been able
Food
to
is
get
right.
off of those medications, right? And that's not the case for everybody, but there's so
Hmm.
many instances of that. And you truly do, I feel like, and you can chime in on this, RJ, in your experience. I feel like I have emerged as a new person in these last 4.5 years. And I'm so much clearer on not only who I am, but what I want and where I'm headed. And so the decisions that I make in my life moving forward are truly going to be authentic to me and aligned to my destiny. Whereas I didn't feel that before, you
Oh,
know?
listen, I am in front of you right now because of that. I'm actually in front of everybody, you as well as how we got connected. My job before moving abroad, I was a travel guy. Outside of that, I run my own telecommunications business. So everything was, I can make good money. Everything is great. Whereas I look at this opportunity, and I said to this to a number of people in the last, I would say, year. I now know what I'm supposed to be doing. There's so many inklings of what I'm doing now. As okay, I could see something like this. I could see something like this. My folks would tell me, "Oh, you could be a politician or a reverend," and I said, "I don't have any space to be crooked at any point. So I'm going to stick to what it is that I know." But when I found the opportunity to reach back, understanding who I was, accumulated a bunch of stuff, done a bunch of things in the United States, and then left the United States, and then saw what it was that was available, not for just me, but for so many other people. It wasn't, I didn't have that space to see where I was. I was always walking towards this journey. So many things that I did 10 years ago was
Yeah.
actually things that prepared me for today and the things that I do. But I didn't know where I was walking. But now on the other side of the TSA, I tell y'all, the transformation happened on the other side of TSA. Because what I've been able to put together, being able to help
Mm.
families move abroad, being able to connect with people like you in multiple countries, in multiple cities coming from America, living abroad, that's only God and my ability, the energy that has been put in front of me and saying, okay, this is what your calling is. I'm gonna just continue to lead it. Now I just said to my girl, I said, yo, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel good in doing this. I don't feel like this is work. This is just this is what I can do for my community. And this only came by me leaving and seeing how important community was to me. So the space that you have, now you might not you, Court, but whoever's
Yeah.
watching this, you might whoever's watching this, you might not be like, oh, well, I'm going to go inspire the community to help move abroad. That might not be your hat. We talked about, the community having, everybody's got their role. My role may be this and your role may be that, but your role within the community is such an important part, and so many more people are starting to fold back into the community now, or realizing that we're going to need each other to get out of this. And me seeing what this gives us abroad is such a, it's a blessing. it's such a unique thing. But I know a lot of people are here to talk about Playa del Carmen. You and I, we gonna keep talking because you and I are like linked up with this, like what we need to do and how can we have these conversations to help guide people out. But I know a lot of people are in that destination searching phase and really looking for information in Playa del Carmen. I want to get into the cost of living because finances may not be on somebody's radar, but it is on a lot of people's radar because things in the United States just cost like an arm and a leg, the price of groceries. Talk to me about what that looks like in Playa versus what you even experienced just jumping back in the United States, and you're like, I don't know how y'all paying this.
Listen, it's so funny because um I was hanging out with some friends, one of which was visiting from the States, from New York City, and she was just emphasizing how violently
Hmm.
expensive things have gotten, especially since the pandemic began. And I'm really careful when I have this conversation, RJ, because it could be a slippery slope. When we talk
Okay.
about expensive, that is relative, right, to your particular financial
Yes.
situation. But the quality of life, the cost of living compared to many major US cities is certainly a relief. I will say that. When we first moved here in 2021, we were able to cut our living expenses by 50%. Imagine what your life could look like if you could cut your living expenses by half. Imagine how much more breathing room you could have, right?
Hmm.
Imagine the choices that you could make. Imagine the amount of financial milestones that you could reach. Now, I won't say that that's the case today because things, like everywhere, inflation has impacted. And I don't want to paint a totally rosy picture that, oh, Mexico is so cheap and all of that. I will say that because we are in Quintana Roo, which is a state that was created for tourism, remember, we have not only Playa del Carmen, we have Cancun, and we also have Tulum. It is one of the more expensive areas of Mexico. So I do encourage people to do their due diligence and do their research.
Okay.
Um, However, like I mentioned, against many major US cities, the cost of living here is
Oh yeah.
relatively manageable for most people, especially given the environment that you find yourself in. You might be able to find an apartment that is walking distance for the from the beach, that is compared, much less compared to where you might be coming from in the States, especially like that East Coast, because that's where I came from, Atlanta. And that's what I'm
Hmm.
most familiar with. And definitely the West Coast. I know our West Coasters are like breathing so many sighs of relief because they are really experiencing some financial breathing room. But yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, access to fresh fruits and veggies that it won't cost you an arm and a leg, where you don't have to go to somewhere like Whole Foods that gives you that organic markup, and just so many other things, right? Also, your cost of living tends to go down because, for most people, because you are not accumulating and acquiring so many material things. We moved here with two suitcases and a carry-on each, my husband and I. So we had to make some real decisions about what we were going to
Okay.
bring. And for a while, we were rotating these outfits, right? We
Mm.
had what's now called the capsule outfit. We were wearing these things over and over and over again. And you know what that taught me, RJ? That showed me that I didn't need the overwhelming majority of the things that I had already purchased and
I
that
didn't
was
have to.
already in my shopping cart. you know so that's the other aspect too, where it may show up in your rent or your utilities, that savings, but it also shows up in just how your life shifts once you make that move, because a lot of people find themselves focusing and prioritizing experiences over material things. You could wear a pair of flip-flops, a tank top, and the same shorts, the same outfit every single day, and no one here will blink an eye. And I'll tell you, that takes so much of the pressure off, especially when you're coming from Atlanta, because the girls be dressing down in Atlanta. They they put that ish on, okay? And there's nothing wrong with it. But it's such a relief to not have to constantly be on, to constantly perform, and that is also something that gives you a sense of psychological safety in knowing that you can just truly be your authentic self. You can show up as is and,
Hmm.
still live a beautiful life. So that's what I'll say about the cost of living. What I really love to focus on, even above and beyond the cost of living, is quality of life,
Mm.
because you don't have to have a ton of money to have a wonderful quality of life. And that is what I have found here in Playa del Carmen. A lot of the reason is because of the nature here. Also, because everything here isn't transactional. There are free areas to work out. There are free workout classes, group workout classes that happen, multiple times a week. There are third spaces that you can go to where you don't have to constantly spend money. I hear people talk about, going out and socializing in the United States. It's like you go outside and you're automatically spending $100. It's $100 to go outside.
Quick,
you know and that
quick.
keeps you from connecting with other people, because by the time you get done with going for drinks, going to brunch here and there, you've depleted your bank account. And here
Quick.
I will say that the connections happen over kickbacks. They happen over, a cup of coffee. They happen at the park. They happen while you're just walking around and exploring the area. They happen at the beach, and the quality of the connections, and again, the quality of your life, just, I know mine has elevated
Oh
tenfold,
yeah.
exponentially, since I've landed here, and that's what I really value.
No. And you bring that up and it makes me think of this is the exact scenario. I came from Medellin, was like, all right, I know Courtney's out there. Our friend Jazz, she just had moved back, so I was like, damn, she's gonna be going. And I got into one of the chats, and I was like, okay, hey guys, I'm here. What's going on? And somebody messaged me in the chat, one of my homegirls, Monet, and it's like, oh my gosh, you are here. Well, about a year and a half ago, Monet and I met each other when we went river rafting in Medellin, Colombia. She ended up leaving after like 3, 4 months, and I always had her kept a number and stuff, kept in contact with her. But she had went back to the States for a little bit, and then I went into the Playa chat, and she was like, "I just got back last night." And when I tell you guys, like the people that you will meet,
Mm.
you get this thing that is like you have an opportunity to see life in a different way, where you automatically know that if you would have stayed on the path that you were in, no matter if you feel like it's great or you feel like maybe need some change, that your life is automatically going to have would have been different, like in the worst ways possible, because of the things that you are starting to do now that just come easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
yeah.
quality of life is
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah, I think it's truly incalculable. That's why I
Yeah.
focus on that more so than cost of living, because we operate off of two different currencies. Here in Mexico, we are on the Mexican peso. And at
Yeah.
any given time, that exchange rate can change. I mean, it fluctuates daily. It fluctuates sometimes a couple of times a day. And
Hmm.
typically it is 20 to 1. You get 20 Mexican pesos on average for $1 US. Depending again on the season and on the market and all of that good stuff,
Hmm.
which is pretty decent, right? But that doesn't give people a real sense of what that means, because you have to, you really get the best sense by being on the ground. But what I will say is, that quality of life aspect is definitely something that you just can't put a price tag on. You can't put a price tag on vitality. You can't put a price tag on well-being. And that's what I'll say. Yeah. It's just I can't even. And honestly, like, the quality of my life definitely got upgraded in ways I didn't expect. And
Okay.
I didn't know the areas that I would really appreciate that would be upgraded. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it was just a it was a pleasant surprise, and it was another one of the reasons why I got stuck here. You know.
Let me tell y'all this, because I know people are like, but you didn't tell me how much things cost. All right, let me tell you this, because I know people want to. A bag of groceries does not cost $100. Let me just tell you that right now. Now, don't
Right.
everything comes down to what you put into the bag. If you put in a bag, if you go get a bag of lobster tails, you're probably going to spend more money than average. But the basic needs, they're not at $100 a bag of groceries. Going out to lunch doesn't cost 75 to $100. Like that is the perspective. I always tell people you can spend like you can spend like you're back in the United States, no matter where you go. Even where Colombia, it's
Yep.
4,000 to 1 versus 20 to 1, and you could still spend like you're back in the United States. They have grocery stores and malls and restaurants where you could pay $120 a plate for food, or you can do that. But if you are trying to live the American life. And I think the American life is, let me show you what I have in my bank account. Let me go into a club and throw money. I get so many Americans asking me, where can I throw money at? Where's the strip club? And I'm like, this doesn't
Mm.
happen in the same way that it does in the United States. Where the section's at? I want to get bottles. And it's like, the section doesn't even cost anything, bro. Like, you want a bottle, it's $30. Like, you're the conditioning of what we're asking. So I know a lot of people are like, well, what's the cost of living? Like you can get a beautiful house. Many times we're renting, and this is general, Colombia or Mexico, we're renting with things included. So many of the utilities are included, but depending on where you are going, a place like Playa, because it's hot and real hot some parts of the year, air condition, electricity may be something that you have to pay, so it's not included in your rent. But
Hmm.
I will tell somebody that you can probably, depending on what you need, you might want a pool or a gym, but you can get something for 800 to $1,000 in Playa, whereas that same place may be a
fifteen
thousand to
hundred to
thirteen
two
hundred
grand.
or 1,500, or like the place I live at now. This place in the United States, considering proximity to the ocean, considering we have our own pool and we're on the top floor, $4,000, $5,000. I don't pay anywhere close to that. Like by like a no. So the that's why it's a lot of us are like kind of like, well, I don't want to give you a real answer because it comes down to you and what you want and what you're willing to purchase. But I will tell you, things are like way more affordable, and the quality of life that you get for way less money. I tell people we often are chasing $100,000 in the United States. That $100,000 lifestyle, that a place like Philadelphia, even shit, Los Angeles, $100,000 don't go that far. Whereas
Pennies.
$50,000, right? You could have $50,000 and feel like you're living $100,000 lifestyle in many places. That is where the
Yeah.
research comes in. So the cost of living is definitely cheaper. I think anywhere we're gonna have anybody expert come on here, you're always going to be in a scenario where the United States is just charging you too much for terrible things. But we had on Corey, the financial expert. She was like, just because things don't cost much, do you now start living a luxury lifestyle? Oh, I've never had these things. So now I'm saving $3,000 a month. So I'm gonna go spend all $3,000 a month on creating this luxury lifestyle for me. That's a question that is on you, the viewer, not on me or Courtney. So when you call the cost of living, things are
Yeah.
automatically going to be cheaper. But you could easily supplement that cost of money that you're saving every month with taking that mindset or buying new things that you never had access to, and you're just spending and still only got $50. The same $50 that you had after the end of the paycheck in America, it would be the same $50 that you have at the end of the paycheck in Mexico or Panama or Colombia. So
Yep.
consider that when thinking what cost of living is, and be realistic. I think if you can live in the United States and afford to live there, you can afford to live almost anywhere in the world. But you may not be able to get that extreme villa that you see for the price that they told you. So just keep in mind some of these things. We talked about the need for Spanish. A little bit. I want to get into that because that is a concern, and we're going to have to touch a big
Hmm.
button topic for people. Because when people are talking about Mexico in general and Playa del Carmen, it's one big elephant that is in the room. But before we get there, I want
Yeah.
to talk to them about Spanish because I went to Colombia first. If I would have went to Mexico, I would have been fine with the Spanish that I had at the time that I left. Whereas in Colombia, I had to get like put my Spanish jacket on. And you mentioned the D word earlier today, which is Duolingo, and we don't say them people name. We're not gonna say it no more because those people do not help people learn language. They will give you
It's
words that you will
gamified.
never use over
Yeah.
400 days of consecutive use, and it's like you now know how to tell somebody you own a brown belt and that you are in class learning that, but you can't go to the restroom. We need to stop. So Duolingo is not something that I endorse at all. They will never give me a sponsorship or send me any money unless they change their program. But um, Spanish in Playa del Carmen, I've got my thought process. Tell me what it's like for the first person that's coming here, and I know hola and buenos dias and that's it.
Well, if you're on the struggle bus with your Spanish, fret not, because you can indeed
Right. Right.
maneuver around in Playa del Carmen
Mhm.
without being fully fluent. Because again, this entire region has been really it caters to tourism. Now,
Mhm.
there are some drawbacks and of course some pros to that. One of the pros is once you land, you don't have to start speaking Spanish immediately. And but I will say that you do get treated a little better when you give it a try. I will say that. Cuz just imagine if someone landed in the United States and started speaking their native language to you, you'd be like, excuse me. But if
I
they
ain't
made an
got you.
effort,
Yep.
if they didn't made an effort, even if they have to piece together sentences or words, if it's the wrong verb tense, at least they're
Mhm.
trying and you can meet them where they are. And that is the experience that I've had here in this entire region. A lot of people are just tickle pink that you know a little bit of Spanish and that you're
Yeah.
attempting to communicate with them. So yeah, you don't have to come here off of
Fluent.
fluent,
I'm
but
not
it does
fluent.
it does I'm not either. I know enough to be dangerous, and as a matter of fact, I think I've plateaued a little bit, so it's time to
Listen,
go a little bit
I feel
harder on my
like Vegeta
curriculum.
sometimes. Like, I'm using this Spanish. I'm kicking their butt right now. Like,
Yeah, and so many people have been my teachers. My the cashiers at the grocery stores, at the fruterias have been my teachers. Cab drivers have been my teachers. And one thing that I really love about here is the people. The people are so warm and so kind. They will go out of their way to help you, especially if
yep.
you're stuck trying to speak the language, or you're at the
Hmm.
cashier and you don't know what they're saying and they may not speak English. So even if you do find yourself in a situation where you cannot use your English or your native language, people are so helpful here. And they're not snobbish about their language, and that also contributed to my reason for staying, because
Yeah.
uh it's one thing to say, yeah, when you get here you got to learn the language and you got to do this and you got to do that, but on top of moving your entire life, if you don't already know the language, that indeed can become a full-time job. So I understand that not
Mhm.
everybody is in a life space or a stage where they will be able to get on a curriculum immediately and start speaking Spanish and learning in that way. So, for those of you who might be a little bit iffy because of the language barrier, then just know that you'll be able to make it. You'll be able to maneuver and learn a little bit along the way as well, because you can't be here without picking up a little bit at least.
Let me tell you something. Some people have their brains turned off so much, and that's why I do my best, and you do such a good job at this of trying to educate people before they buy their ticket, before they go leave. Because you think in Mexico, and especially in Playa, I'm like, you've got the resorts, you've got the hotels. So you've got tourists all around that
Yeah.
are just here for the weekend. The resorts and the hotels aren't like in other places where resort is 3 miles inland from the main road. Like most of these hotels and resorts, you can just walk off and be where the people are. But I've met people in Colombia that have lived there as long as I have and are looking at me crazy for knowing how to order at a restaurant. And I'm like, it must have been very hard for you to turn your brain off that much. So I challenge everybody that is looking and you say, okay, I don't know a lot of Spanish now. And that is okay. And that's why I say there's some starter places that you can go, like Playa del Carmen, that will be great. So you can start to learn, so you can get in, so you can unlock more of the world. Because going to places, you can't expect the colonization to have taken English everywhere that you wanted to go. There's some spots that you
Okay.
want to go that they won't speak English, and you're like, well, I'm not going to go. Like, no, I've had the best time in a place where I was the only English speaker. And I was able to have my little bit of Spanish and say, ¿Cómo se dice, amigo? And everybody be like, okay, but I'm sitting there having the best time. So don't let you not speaking Spanish stop you from moving abroad or the language, but don't let it stop you from actually experiencing the place that you're going. Because I think I have a better experience in Mexico with my Spanish. I know I have a better experience in Colombia with my Spanish, the little bit that I have. And I feel such a sense of accomplishment when I'm walking out. I was like, boy, I told them at the man, I knew. Listen, when I found out my barber here in Mexico was Colombian, because I
Ah,
could hear
yeah.
them speaking Colombian Spanish and not Mexican Spanish. And I'm like, can I ask y'all a question? But I'm saying this in Spanish. And they like confirmed. And I'm like, your boy is living. I got my Spanish together. I'm living my best life. I felt accomplished. And it's like, you got to have your little
Yes.
expat wins. You know what I mean? So definitely don't
Yes.
let that keep you at home, but come prepared to learn. You're not too old to learn. Um,
Right.
One of the things that is the elephant, and I want to touch base on that because I've been getting you guys, not you, Court, but y'all, the audience, y'all will, especially in the age of AI, y'all will see something and take it for 100% as if it is the light. And I tell people because in the last couple of days, like I said, my folks that like know some of you guys like, wait, you're in Mexico? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I travel the world. I'm around. I'm in Mexico for a little bit. Been here for about 2 months. And I say that is because so many of my friends that know that I'm here sent me videos and said, "Hey, I saw these things on the internet about Mexico. Are you okay? Stay woke, stay aware of what's going
Yeah.
on." And I would say, like, there may be some truth to some things. There may not be some truth, but there is so much media stuff that goes on in America, propagandizing places that they have friction with and everything else. Many times you are sending me videos, you guys, the ones that send me the video, and there are just a guy talking into his phone. Is this a guy talking to his phone? He has no media credentials. He's just a guy that heard something talking about a place, and he's not even in Mexico. He's actually in America telling y'all what he heard from somebody else. So I do know that safety is a concern, no matter even isolated to Mexico, but even just in general. Is it safe over there? And
Mm.
let's talk about it because I know that a lot of people, when they consider moving abroad, the safety factor comes in. let's hit it. Let's just jump into it. What's your take on it? Because I got my take. I want to hear you from you though first.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that we're talking about it because it is definitely the elephant in the room. Anytime you mention Mexico specifically, people are asking you about dun dun dun. What about them boys? What about
About the folks, them
what about them
boys.
folks? And if you don't know what the folks are, it's the cartel, y'all. Now, I,
Don't
I
even
know,
let it hit
I
the
know, I
algorithm.
know, I know, RJ. I know there's so many words that we can't say, but for the ones that didn't know what we were talking about, couldn't pick up what we were putting down, um, they exist. Let's start there. I don't ever want to dismiss or diminish anyone's very valid concerns. Um,
Yeah.
but a lot of times, like you mentioned, our concern is born out of propaganda, born out of what we've seen, what we've been fed by the US mainstream media. Now, let me back up and let y'all know that I come to you as a media scholar. And so this is my Roman Empire, y'all. I've done a lot of study on this. I'm an expert. And I will tell you that there are so many reasons why Mexico and them boys who shall remain nameless always seem to come up in the conversation when you mention this place, unfortunately. And a large reason ties back to history. So I'm gonna take us to school real quick, if you don't mind, RJ, because I think that this is
Okay.
important
So,
context for people to understand, especially melanated people. So
yeah.
um back in 1829, Mexico abolished slavery. Mexico did indeed have slaves. They did. As a matter of fact, they were one of the most popular stops on the transatlantic slave trade. I think I read somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody in the comments who is a historian, Mexico actually received more slaves than the United States, just to put that in
Hmm.
perspective at one point in time. However, in 1829, Mexico's second president, Vicente Guerrero, who was of African descent, used his presidential powers to abolish slavery, which meant that it was 36 years before the United States even did the same, before the Emancipation Proclamation,
Hmm.
before Juneteenth, all of that. So, um, Mexico beat the United States to the punch in that regard. What they also did was they wrote it in their constitution that no man could be a slave on this land. And so,
Okay.
a lot of times when we think of the Underground Railroad, we think of the road only going north. But there is actually an
Mm.
Underground Railroad south, and Mexico is a
Hmm.
part of the Underground Railroad. And Mexico has been a major supporter of Black liberation ever since for hundreds of years. Okay, and
Hmm.
so for those who took the Underground Railroad south, crossed the Rio Grande, for most of the time it would be enslaved people from Texas and Louisiana, because logistically it would make more sense to go south as opposed
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
risking it
Makes
all
sense.
and
Then
going
to kind
north,
of get all the
right?
way to Canada from Texas.
Yeah, that's a long stretch. You taking a lot of big chances, whereas you could reach freedom
Hmm.
faster if you were to go south. And so a lot of enslaved people did, not as many as those that traveled north, but enough to where Mexico essentially offered them freedom upon landing here. So when their feet touched the land, they were automatically free. The United States started to recognize that enslaved people were coming to Mexico, and they tried to petition Mexico. They tried to incentivize Mexico to return those enslaved people. However, Mexico said, "Nah, we're not doing that. We're standing on business." And they truly did. It took the people. And this is an important piece, because oftentimes we lean on legislation like, "Oh, it's illegal." But legislation, the effectiveness of legislation is only so much if the people actually make sure that those laws are executed. And so during that time when Vicente Guerrero abolished slavery here in Mexico, Mexico's government was just up in arms for a long time. Like for a while, it was a little chaotic down here because they were trying to find their way as a newly emancipated country themselves, because they had emancipated themselves from the Spanish. And so they decided that the people decided that they were going to uphold the abolishment of slavery. They didn't need a whole civil war in order to recognize the humanity of people back in 1829. So when I say that this place is a refuge, has been a refuge for us, I mean that. And so because I started to feel like, man, this is ancestral. Like, what is it that I feel? I don't know if I have roots here in Mexico or what, but why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like when I cross into Mexican airspace, when I touch this land, I feel a different sense of freedom? And a lot of that history of Mexico really contributing to Black liberation, and serving as a sanctuary and as a refuge for us has a lot to do with that. And so I wrap up that history lesson in saying that one of the reasons why there is such a negative connotation about Mexico in the United States is because media, actually the leaders at the time, the politicians, they spread these nasty rumors about Mexico and the people of Mexico simply because Mexico was an agitator. It was a disruptor of US enslavement. As a matter of fact, had it not been for Mexico, we definitely in the United States would have experienced slavery from sea, literally, to shining sea, because they are partly responsible for halting the expansion of slavery westward. So, had it not been for Mexico, there have been slaves all the way in California. Okay. And so, as a result of that, Mexico, the girls in the United States were big mad, and they decided to basically slander Mexico's name. And that is one of the major reasons why there's such a negative connotation, why folks clutch their pearls when they hear that you might be considering moving to Mexico or you might be visiting Mexico. And this is not to say that crime and danger don't exist here. They do. Mexico has a huge problem with femicide. It is a machismo country. Women and girls definitely have a certain level of danger here. I don't want to dismiss that. I don't want to diminish that. And I also don't want to glaze over the fact that colorism does exist. Mexico does have an Afro-Mexican population, 2.5 million and growing, that have been truly cut off from resources because of colorism. But the connotation that we have about Mexico is it's really misunderstood, and it glosses over the diversity of this place. It glosses over the history and the culture. And so I would caution those who, you see some of those stories about what's going on in Mexico, and you might have friends who have made the move or are visiting, and you're tempted to send them that link. Well, just know that Mexico is a really big place. It's 32 states. So anytime you hear something going on in Mexico, pause and do a little reading, right? Investigate to see if that's actually the area where your homies are before you send articles and videos and all of that, because we receive an influx of them. Because that would just be like us sending you an SOS text, like, okay, there's something that happened in New York City, but I'm sending that to my friend in California. That's essentially how we have to think of it, because Mexico is so big, it's so vast, and it's not a monolith. And unfortunately, because of our education system in the US, we're not really taught a lot about other places outside the United States, even geographically. So the negative media connotation does have a history, but I will say personally, in my personal experience, I have not experienced the sense of fear and dread and danger that I have experienced in the United States. I tell people all the time that I feel safer here than I've ever felt anywhere in the United States. And before I left, I lived in some of the most coveted zip codes with the gated neighborhoods and the HOAs and the good zip codes and the good schools. And still, I find that being here, I'm safer, and that is really the consensus of so many other Black Americans that I have talked to. And one of those factors that really contributes to our sense of safety is this idea of psychological safety, because oftentimes we are targeted in the United States because of our skin tone, right? And so here it's a different feeling because we're among brown people. We're among brown people. And honestly, as Americans, we do have a certain amount of privilege. So I can't have this whole dialogue with you without mentioning that, because it does contribute to our treat to how we're treated. Because as I mentioned, there are Afro Mexicans here that are not treated as well as we are as African Americans, and that is indeed a shame. But overall, the sense of safety, psychological safety, knowing that you don't have to necessarily be the representative for your entire race, for your entire people, knowing that for most people, most of your interactions, you're not automatically considered a threat or a criminal, makes a huge difference in how you feel safe and what you feel in your body when you're here or when I'm here. And so that has also been one of the major reasons why I've decided to stay, is because I do feel so safe. Not only me, but my husband, and again, so many other folks that I've had the pleasure of speaking with that have shared their stories on Black Expat Stories. There's so many people who have moved here as single women, single mothers with small children. And I just feel like even though Mexico has this looming reputation, there's a sense of community here. There's a sense of like a code, like your humanity is of value, and that to me makes all the difference. RJ, did we lose you? I think the internet on your side may be providing some or causing some problems. And I don't have access to the chat, so I don't know if people are asking questions. Oh no. Let me message him, y'all. I think he's coming back. I don't know. I can see your square, but not your face. And just while we were getting into the good part too about this idea of safety, and I'll say this too while we're waiting on RJ to get connected, because I'm very careful not to paint this rosy picture. Um, I'm very quick not to paint a rosy picture because um again, danger exists everywhere, and crime exists everywhere. But one of the things that has given me, hey RJ, you're back.
Lord, the internet in Mexico actually hates me. And thank you for continuing, obviously, the conversation because I am definitely upset about this. But we have been on for over an hour. What I want to do is there is so much more for us to talk about. November is coming soon. November 22nd, we actually have our relocation conference.
Yes.
It covers Playa del Carmen, Mexico. It covers Colombia, Cali, Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama, Costa Rica, Honduras, Guatemala, Honduras,
I think we might have lost RJ's audio. I can't hear you. Okay, y'all. For those of you who are joining me on Facebook, RJ has is having some connectivity issues. But this live has already been an hour long. So hopefully you've gotten some good information, at least to get you started on your relocation search, if that is indeed what you are looking to do. Playa del Carmen again is a great launching pad for so many reasons. And on November 22nd, we're actually having a virtual relocation conference. So we're going to be highlighting three major countries that are hotspots for Black Americans right now moving: uh, Colombia, Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and Panama. So if you are interested in any of those three places, if any of those three places are on your relocation list, then you'll definitely want to register for the virtual relocation conference that is coming up on November 22nd. 10 plus experts giving you insights on cost of living, infrastructure, all the things that you might
Mhm.
have burning questions about. And you can grab your ticket by visiting blackexpatstories.com/relocate. That's blackexpatstories.com/relocate. And I cannot wait to see you there. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. And be sure to stay tuned for more Black Expat Stories. If you are not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can find us there at Black Expat Stories. You can also follow us and join the conversation on TikTok and Instagram at Black Expat Stories. And if you want every single new episode delivered straight to your inbox so you can bypass all of these iffy social media algorithms, then I encourage you to visit blackexpatstories.com/newsletter to join our growing global community. Thank you so much again for joining us. And until next time, I'm wishing you peace, love, and passport stamps. Bye.